Jack. Chad calls me Stonewall Thompson. And I guess I'm here to tell my testimony. Whew! It's either a really, really long thing or a really, really short thing. But I'll try my best to make it 10 minutes. Before I knew Christ, it was, I guess you would call it a normal childhood. I was raised in a Christian household, quote unquote. It was church going, mostly powered by my mom. Both my parents were raised Christian, and so we went to church because it was almost a habit. And therefore, my childhood had church in it, but I didn't understand what was going on. I wasn't invested in any of it, and it seemed honestly kind of weird. And that went on for a time before it started to just fade away, where we stopped going to church, started watching TV church. We stopped watching TV church and we started reading kids' Bible stories, and that eventually stopped as well until it was just completely devoid of anything spiritual. And so it wasn't the most flourishing household, you could say, for Christians. As a kid, I was not the most pleasant one to be around, admittedly. I was angry, selfish, I was pretty lazy, and I was very, very stubborn. It would take a lot of something in order to get me to do what you wanted. And my mom, I wouldn't say she was the cause of that, but I will say I had a whole lot of her genes. And because of that, she got very frustrated with me, and I probably caused her no end of grief because, yeah, I was not a willing mule, if anything. And from that, by the grace of God alone, I was stuck into a Christian private school. And I'm pretty sure that was the last spiritual thing that my mom had given to our family before she passed away whenever I was 13 or 14. When she passed away, it, I guess you could say, emotionally fractured the family. We weren't much of a family for a while after that. We were kind of individuals in the same household, if that makes any sense. My dad was grieving on his own, and he was probably having trouble just trying to get out of bed every day. And my brother, I don't know what happened with him, but I can tell you that what happened with me was immediate diving into depression. Deep, deep depression. And while I'm not sure if it's clinical, I can guarantee you that it was definitely an emotional depression. And in that period of time, it was basically like the roof of my world was blown off. I didn't know what to do with anything anymore because my mom was my motivation and she was my everything. My world was confined to the school and my house. And so when she died, I all of a sudden had my life in my hands and I didn't know what to do with it. And it took a while, about a year maybe, before I actually started thinking. Or maybe I started thinking before that. I don't know. When anybody's depressed, they will tell you the same, that time is pretty relative. And during that time, I was thinking in between, whenever I was sober at least. I wasn't drunk, just to clarify. I was thinking about what I wanted because I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to screw up my life because it was already mine in my hands, and I couldn't shove it off on someone else because, well, that's a bad idea. And I didn't have any idea what to do with it. And so after thinking and thinking some more, I kind of grasped at enough straws to find one that I liked, which was wisdom. wisdom, the ability to judge things, the ability to understand what's before you, and the ability to act on your good knowledge. And once I had started thinking about that, I was looking into all the smart, famous, interesting, charismatic people of the world, the people that had everything to say about everything to do. It's the people you listen to. I listened to and looked at all those people, inventors, leaders, coaches, teachers, famous people, just anybody who had anything to say that was supposedly wise. And I thought I found what I wanted. I thought I found wisdom that, yes, this would get me through life and this would do everything that I've ever wanted. And then they started to repeat themselves, and then I was kind of like, okay, I need some more, because this is about enough for about 3 years before I will probably die. And then it just became a broken record, and I didn't know what to do. And so, being in a Christian private school, I had to take a Bible class every single day I went. And so here comes the 3 wisdom books of the Bible. And I think to myself, all right, God of the universe, wise one, the only one who knows everything, show me what you got. And the first few pages or so covered what I learned in the past year. And I was kind of left with my hands open, thinking to myself, oh, okay, I guess you know what you're doing. And so from that point on, it was pretty simple. I had been convinced that God knew what he was talking about. And so I will believe him whenever he says, you know, I made everything. And I say, okay. And he says, you know, I made man in my image. And I say, okay. And man is wicked. Okay. And Jesus is to be your savior. Sounds great. And that was the acceptance of I accepted with my mind. Everything was flowing in like an open dam. It's like, yeah, give it all. This is awesome. And then in comes how that changes my life, how that looks practically. At the time, I was into self-mutilation. Thankfully, it wasn't enough to an addictive level, but it was enough that it affected me, and I cared very little for my body. Biologically, we produce blood every day. And so if you lose a little and the wound is small, then it's fine, because it'll just heal and you'll produce blood again. Here comes God, and the first thing I hear from him ever, first conversation we have, is, I care for your blood more than you do. What does that say? And I was kind of blown out of the water. Again, he seems to have a trend of doing that. And that was the divergence of conventional wisdom and the love of God. Because conventional wisdom will lead you a long way, but it will not lead you to God. It's the love of God that will lead you to God. And it's from that point on that I guess you could say I was considered saved. And every single day after that, it's been finding out more and more that what I found to live by was not wisdom, but every word that comes out of the mouth of God. I wanted something to live by, something that I could not fail if I followed it to a T. And I thought that was wisdom. But in the end, it turned out to be God himself. Since then, it's been a lot of changes. I would like to say I've grown more calm. I would like to say I've shed all my human impurities and become an ascended being of perfection. But it is not so. Every day I wake up and I realize I'm human. And every day, God gives me a little bit more of himself to live by. And I can definitely say that the depression has stuck with me, not in full force, but it's now my new sad. And so getting out of bed is hard at times. But it's in those times and the times in between and the times it's easy that God shows his faithfulness, and I have frequently cried at just how much he loves me